This is the Go Color 7 Gen 2, and I've been using this as my main e-reader for the last 2 months. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you all of my thoughts and opinions of my use of it so far. I'm going to try to cover most of the questions that I got on my unboxing video of the Go Color 7 Gen 2, especially regarding the stylus that is now compatible with the device, and also just my overall reading experience. Now, if you're not yet familiar with this device, I'm just going to give you like a brief summary. So this is an e-reader from Boox. It's got a 7-inch color e-ink screen, and what really sets it apart from other e-readers is the fact that it runs Android 13. So you can have a bunch of different reading apps on here like Kindle, Libby, Kobo, etc. So it doesn't just limit you to one reading platform, which I really love. So now that you have an idea of what this device is, I'm going to jump into the review. So we're going to start off with design. The design of the Go Color 7 Gen 2 is very similar to last year's model. I'm even using the exact same case that I used on the Gen 1 on my Gen 2. The only really noticeable difference is the page turning button, since we now have a gap in between the two buttons, which you didn't have on the Gen 1. A lot of people complained about this on the Gen 1 since there wasn't a gap. They constantly were clicking the wrong button since they couldn't distinguish which one was which. I never really had that issue, but I am happy with this design change. I think it just makes sense. Now, as for the display, I do think the screen is nice. We have a Kaleido 3 e-ink display, which is standard for color e-readers. So it's got 300 ppi for black and white content and 150 ppi for color content. Now, if you don't know what ppi is, that is your pixel density, and basically the higher the number, the more detailed and clearer the image. So your black and white content is just gonna look a bit better and more crisp than your color content. The only thing that I really wish we did see improvements on from the Gen 1 was like the overall brightness and contrast of the screen. I do feel like compared to the Kindles or Kobos, the books can sometimes just look a bit dull, even though it has the same screen technology with the Kaleido 3. So hopefully this is something that they will improve in the future, just so that the overall brightness is just a bit better. Now, one of the major new features that wasn't on the previous model is the fact that it is now compatible with the Boox InkSense stylus. Now, this is sold separately, and if I'm gonna be completely honest, I don't think that it's like worth spending the extra money to get the stylus, unless you really want to do some light annotating or highlighting in books using the stylus. As I mentioned in my unboxing video, I don't think that the handwriting feature or the stylus is a reason to get this device. It is a nice feature to have, but this isn't going to be your new dedicated note-taking device. Personally, I haven't really used the stylus all that much since getting the device, partly because I just don't annotate books in that way, but also because it's not compatible with the apps that I prefer to do my reading in, and overall the writing experience just isn't that great to me. There is an entire note-taking section on the Go Color 7 Gen 2 with a bunch of different templates that you can use and take notes, and it has all the tools that you will need for note-taking. But again, I just don't find myself wanting to take notes on this device. I do just wish the stylus was a bit more precise, like what we have with the Note Air series from Boox. The stylus on those devices were using Wacom's EMR technology, so it's more precise and it has more pressure levels, whereas this stylus is a USI 2.0 active stylus. So these use active signals to communicate with your screen, and that just means that it also isn't as precise and it doesn't have as many pressure levels as you would get with the Wacom EMR stylus. But with all of that being said, if you are still wanting to use this device for light note-taking or annotating of books, then it is of course capable of doing that. You are just going to be limited with what apps you use this for. For annotating books and PDFs, the best app is going to be the Neo Reader, which is the default reader app on the device. You can find it in the library section. It has a few different pen options and color options, so you can easily add highlighter or handwriting into your books. And even with EPUBs, you can adjust the spacing between different lines and also the spacing in the margins, so to make it just more comfortable for you to annotate your books. The Neo Reader also has this cool feature where it can narrate the book for you, so that just turns it into kind of like an audiobook, so that's also a really nice option. And you can easily send files like photos or PDFs or EPUBs from your phone to the books using the Boox Assistant app, so that is really handy to have. But yeah, overall, if you're going to be doing any annotating on books or PDFs, you're going to be using the Neo Reader, and if you're just going to be doing usual like note taking, you can use the notes section on the device. As for the reading apps that you download from like the Google Play Store, like I already said, like Kindle or Kobo, sadly those do not support the handwriting feature at all. I was hoping that at least the Kobo app would, since they do have the Kobo Libra Color, but sadly it's not an option. None of the handwriting features like writing in the margins or highlighting using the pen will work. You can of course play around with some apps on the App Store like OneNote, or I think I heard like Zoto PDF Reader or something. Maybe try those out if you're really looking for an app to do these things in, but I've heard that they can be really laggy, so I would just rather recommend than just using the Neo Reader app. So in summary, for light annotating and note-taking and highlighting, the Stylus will be able to do the job alongside the Neo Reader app and the notes section on the device. But for more serious note-taking and longer writing sessions, I would rather recommend looking into Boox's other devices like the Note Air series. Now mainly what I use this device for is reading, and it handles that with ease. I mostly do my reading in the Kindle app, and I really love having the page turning buttons, especially when I'm doing my reading. That's why I always reach for this instead of just like my Kindle Paperwhite. If you are having an issue where you can't get the page turning buttons to work with the Kindle app or even the Kobo app, then I would recommend going into the settings on the device to the page turning button settings. Make sure that the page turning button settings are set to volume for these apps, and then go into the settings in the apps themselves and make sure to turn on the setting to turn your pages using the volume controls. I do mostly read like regular books on here. I don't really read graphic novels all that much, but I do love having color when it comes to browsing books in my apps. It just is an entirely different experience than having it in black and white. And also when highlighting in books, having that in color is also just really nice. So I do love having a color screen on here. But if you are someone who's going to be reading graphic novels on this device, then I definitely recommend optimizing your settings for the best experience with minimal ghosting. You can access the e-ink center by swiping up from the left side of your screen, and then you will see all the different refresh modes. You have HD, which is supposed to be good quality and good for just regular text reading. You have speed, which gives you slight ghosting, but it's great for just quickly going through images and text. A2 gives you heavier ghosting, but it's also great for pages with images and text. And then we have Regal, which gives minimal ghosting, but it does cause flickering on darker backgrounds, so they recommend using lighter backgrounds for this. So those can be really overwhelming, but I'm just going to be giving you my preferred settings for reading and what I found just works best for me. So just for regular text reading, I would recommend either HD or speed. They both give you like a clear refresh without having the animation be too annoying or anything. That works great for me. And then when it comes to graphic novels, there is a ton of opinions online about what are the best settings for this. So I currently have mine set on Regal, and then when you go into the more settings area, I have set the full refresh by tap count to 0 and the animation filter time to 50. Some people have recommended setting the animation filter time to 3000. I just don't really like how long the animation then takes, but it's said to be better to eliminate any ghosting. So it really just comes down to personal preference. You can play around, especially with this setting, to see what you prefer. Another really useful tip that I saw, I think it was in a comment as well in one of my videos, is to set the long press on your page turning buttons as a full refresh. So you're going to go to the settings for the page turning buttons, and for long press you're going to set it to 0.5 seconds, and you're going to set it to do a full refresh. So when you feel like there's a lot of ghosting on your screen and you just want to clean it up, then you can just hold down a bit longer on one of the buttons and it will refresh your screen. So this is also really nice. So that is what I recommend when it comes to refresh settings on the device, but I do heavily recommend you just play around with this and see what works best for you when you are reading regular books or graphic novels. Then lastly, battery life on here is really great. I don't have any complaints. I use this device a ton. Like I said, it's my main e-reader, and I only have to charge it every few days, so I have no complaints when it comes to the battery on here. I did go more in detail on this on my review of the first Go Color 7, but we don't have BSR on the Go Color 7 series of devices. BSR is Boox's super refresh technology, so that is supposed to help a lot with more frequent refresh, so that helps with eliminating ghosting, especially when it comes to color content. But since we don't have BSR on the Boox Go Color devices, we have better battery life since it doesn't have to refresh as often. You will see on like the Boox Note Air devices, they do have BSR, so they maybe clean up color content a bit better since it refreshes more, but the battery life on there then just isn't as great. So it is a trade-off between better battery life or better refresh, and they chose better battery for the Go Color 7 series, which I do think makes sense since this is marketed to be an on-the-go device that you can just take with you anywhere. So you do want to have good battery life on a device that you're constantly taking out with you. So I do think it makes sense that they chose better battery for this. Ideally, we'd have good battery and good refresh, but right now this is gonna be the choice you're gonna have to make. But yeah, battery life is really great on this device. Now, to conclude this entire review, do I think this device is worth getting? I would say if you have the first gen Go Color 7, it's not a necessary upgrade. The features are basically the exact same unless you really want the stylus support for the device. Otherwise, I wouldn't say it's a worthy upgrade. Now, if you're just someone who's looking for a reliable color e-reader, you want versatility when it comes to the reading platforms that are available, like the different apps, and maybe you want the note-taking option, and you maybe want page turning buttons, then that all is really great on this device. I absolutely love using it. I have no complaints with it, with the overall just what I'm using it for. I think it works great as an e-reader. That is all of my thoughts about the Go Color 7 Gen 2. I really hope this video was helpful and that I could answer most of the questions that you had about the device, and that you can now make an informed decision on whether it's worth it for you to get it. I know I went pretty hard on the entire like stylus note-taking feature, but I just don't want you to waste your money and think this is gonna be like an amazing writing experience like pen to paper or something like that. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!